Hello everyone and welcome back to Silent No More. My apologies, obviously I haven't posted anything in a while. I've had a lot going on in my life, aside from holidays mixed in there. I was in a serious car accident where I was T-boned at least 50 miles per hour, and sustained some pretty significant injuries to, fortunately, none of my children in the car, because at the last minute I decided to not bring them with, which is a good thing because had they been in the car, one of them or more possibly, I was told, would not have survived that accident given how bent in the frame of my car was. But anyway, so I've had that going on, trying to heal from that, trying to get medical things sorted out with that, from several tears in my shoulders to a compression fracture in my spine, to hematomas in my chest, to issues with my right lung, all that stuff. So it's been pretty hectic. Then, of course, obviously we had Christmas, and I wasn't going to miss out on the magic and the fun of that with my children. And then New Year's. On top of that, we also had a meeting in Newell, Minnesota, in regards to whether or not my ex-husband was going to be charged with anything for the interview that my son gave. I will actually update more on that lately. For now, I guess I will just say that it is good news for us. There is finally some voices being heard, and some validation, and I have an amazingly strong child. I don't know where he gets his strength from. In the face of insurmountable fear, he literally sits there and says, I'm going to tell my story and I'm going to do this whether you want to listen or not. So he's an amazing kid. He's wise beyond his years. I will touch base on the fact, the most heartbreaking part of being a survivor, not only of domestic violence, but of being a mother of a child who has endured abuse at the hands of the other parent, let alone anyone, and witnessed domestic violence, is absolutely heartbreaking. I've recently had to listen to things and hear things that I think I always kind of suspected in the back of my mind, but secretly hoped was not the case. I think with the domestic violence, a lot of times I felt like because I made my kids go upstairs, or because we were in different rooms from them when things were taking place, that they were sheltered enough from it, that they were protected enough from it, that they didn't hear what was going on, or didn't hear as much. And therefore it wasn't as traumatizing. And I was grossly wrong about that. My kids have made comments here and there, but something my son said had struck me quite deeply. When he had told an officer that that there was something that he knew, but that he had overheard, but he had never told me that he knew that he knew. And it had to do with my ex-husband, during a time when I was trying to kick him out of our house to separate because of abusive behaviors that were going on. And I had sent the kids upstairs to bed, and I actually thought they were asleep. But he overheard his quote-unquote father, because he does not like to refer to him that way, not only refusing to leave, and not only threatening to kill me, but he overheard him say that if he could kill me right then and there and get away with it, he would. Just a horrible thing to say to somebody. It's a horrible thing for a young child to hear. And the fact that he kept that in for so long and never said that he had overheard that was heartbreaking. I kind of felt like a failure as a mom at that point, because I guess I kidded myself in thinking that I really shielded my kids from the brunt of it, and that when things got super bad was when we left. And realizing now, I mean, hindsight's always 20/20, that things were really bad before we ever actually left, and I just did not know about it. And I've apologized to my children numerous times for that, because somebody needs to apologize to them, and their response has always been, "But Mom, you didn't know. We didn't tell you. We didn't tell you because we were afraid he would make promise on his words to kill us, or to kill you, or to kill all of us," which, from a survivor standpoint, I understand. I get that. But on the parental side of that, the wanting to protect my children from everything and feeling like I should know everything I'm protecting them from, I feel like I failed. I know the attorney had said, it's good you got out when you did, before anything worse had happened. And I remember my response being, it wasn't soon enough. Yeah, things could have gotten a lot worse, and they were going to get a lot worse had I not left. However, knowing what I know now has happened to not just myself, but to my children, it wasn't soon enough. I wish I would have recognized the signs. I wish I wouldn't have listened to the Catholic Church. I wish I wouldn't have listened to the pressure from his parents, to his empty promises, to his fake attempts at counseling, and just gotten the hell out of there. I came from a background where it was extremely important to not only be married, but to stay married and not get divorced. Unfortunately, the other side of that was, if the person you married had money and wasn't poor, life was fine and you should just put up with it. I mean, my husband wasn't rich by any means. He spent all of our money on alcohol and hookers and prostitutes and God knows what else. But his family has money. And I remember at times complaining to people in my life and saying that something was wrong, or that I was being hurt. And the response was always, but they have money. Like, that made it okay somehow. And so I think that made it harder for me to leave. I've spent a lot of time since Christmas and my car accident dwelling on the what ifs. What if I had left sooner? What if I didn't? What if I wasn't getting the little resources out there that there was? What if I had died in this car accident? What would have happened to my children? Yes, we have a 50-year order for protection, but if I'm dead, who's going to fight that for them? Who's going to make sure that that is there? I've always said and been clear on who I want to take care of my children, or right now who the next person would be that I would rely on to accept that responsibility. But I didn't put it in any legal writing because I'm 33 years old. I'm not thinking about dying, especially since I'm away from him. And then one night I'm driving on the highway and I'm going to make a left turn because I want to go to an ATM, and I'm T-boned at 50 plus miles an hour by a 16-year-old kid, and I'm careened across the road and come within 8 inches of hitting a light pole before my wheel turns just in time. And I can't get out of my car, and I'm left with serious injuries. I've got torn rotator cuffs and tendons, and bone spurs in my shoulder, and subacromial tears, and then tears by my clavicle. I had a chest wall contusion. There's another thing going on with my right lung that they're still not sure. I developed hematomas in my chest. I developed deep hematomas in my leg. I have a compression fracture in my back. I have a complete desiccation of a disc. I got really lucky. Doesn't feel really lucky because it hurts like hell. But the alternative is I could have died in that accident, and what would have happened. So it's caused me to do a lot of soul searching, and a lot of thankfulness and gratitude for being able to be here and to be their mom, because it's really easy to get down on myself, and it's really easy to be like, oh my God, this accident ruined my life, because I have these injuries. They've been difficult to treat. They've misdiagnosed me a couple times. I have no car anymore. My kids were traumatized by the fact that I was in this accident. They're traumatized by the fact that they realized that they were almost in that accident with me. And it's really easy to focus on that, and the pain that causes, and the fear that causes, versus the fact that I'm lucky. And it just reiterates the fact that every parent should probably have some sort of living will in place, but for a domestic violence survivor, it's extra important that you have that in place, to minimize any type of court battle and trauma that could ensue should something happen to you. So that's been heavy on my mind lately, along with the upcoming court proceedings that are going on, and realizing that my address, despite the fact that it's been sealed by courts and protected by law under my OFP, is more than likely going to get exposed no matter what, and that puts me and my children in very imminent danger. The thoughts of, okay, this is what we have to do to protect ourselves. This is what's going to happen if he shows up, if his family shows up, those kinds of things. And at times we've really kind of suspected that he's already known where we are because of things that have happened. But the police over here don't do anything because it's just speculation. They won't even question him on it. I was actually already told by somebody else that he knows where we are. So there's that terrifying aspect of, if something happens, is Pierce County even going to give a crap enough to pay attention to it? Because thus far they haven't. And it just takes away that little bit of security that we had, where it was, we fled, we escaped, we did everything right, our addresses was sealed, and he was has not been allowed to know where we are. But in order to hold him accountable for what he's done, our address is part of discovery, which I'm sorry is something that is extremely wrong and flawed with the system. That's something that should still be protected in criminal matters. It's something that should still be withheld from the perpetrator, whether that means they completely redact it altogether and explain why, or if it means that only their attorney can hear it in chambers and they have to say, sign something saying that they're not going to share it. That's what the system really needs to focus on, versus basically like what I was told with my divorce was, well, if you want to do this, you're going to expose it. So that's been kind of hard to deal with, because living in rural communities, no matter where you are, is always a little bit scary when it comes to having an emergency, because help is not right there. Help is not down the street. And living in communities where they don't take domestic violence seriously, where they don't take child abuse seriously, where they don't do their jobs, periods, is extremely difficult and scary and terrifying. And it's really hard to reach out and talk to other people about that. It's hard to explain that anxiety because you almost don't want to acknowledge it. I've had several people notice changes in me and my behavior, in my anxiety, in my sleep patterns and everything else. But it's not something that is super easy to just sit down and be like, you know what? Here's the thing. Just doesn't work like that. It's also hard, even if you know that the person you're talking to is not going to judge you, to not worry about being judged. Because these situations come with such a high price and such a high amount of judgment. There's always somebody blaming the victim before they blame the perpetrator, which is extremely difficult. And that doesn't matter whether the victim is an adult or a child. So that's hard. It's hard to reach out to people and say, I am scared, I am worried, I fear for my safety. It's hard to ask for space. It's hard to say, you know what, there are some times where I'm going to tell you that I need space, but I need you to come to me anyway, because I'm not capable of doing that. That is what domestic violence does to you. So that's a lot to deal with. Been doing a lot of that. The other part that I don't think ever gets talked about enough, like I touched on before, is being the parent of a victim, not just from the standpoint of having to listen to atrocious and heartbreaking stories, but seeing your child's pain. When you look into your child's eyes and it looks like their soul is cracking in half by one of the two people on this earth that they were ingrained and born into trusting, is horrible. There's not even a word to describe it. I don't know how to describe it. And then seeing their resilience and going, I know he could retaliate against me for this. I know he could attack me for this. I know he can call me a liar. I know he can do all of this. But I'm going to tell my story. And he's 10. He'll be 11 soon. But there are grown people out there who can't do that. And then on the flip side of that, just like a child and any other trauma survivor, there are the side effects. There is the PTSD. There is the fear. There is the fact that he feels like he needs to be the protector of our family. That if his quote-unquote father shows up, that instead of following our safety plan, he wants to defend everybody. And he doesn't want to accept any other answer. There is the watching the PTSD moments. There are the sleepless nights because he's scared, but he doesn't want to tell me he's scared. So instead, he just lays at the foot of my bed and curls up in the fetal position. And all I can do is let him know that I'm there. I can't fix it. I can't make it better. I want to make it better. But I can't, and it's that way for all three of my older children. I've watched them all go through this and experience this in one way or another, and I can't fix it. I wish I could fix it. I sincerely hope that, at least in my son's sake, being able to tell part of his story will help him in that regards, no matter what the outcome is, because we all know he's telling the truth. We all know that he couldn't have possibly made this up. We all know that evil exists in this man that I married, who purported to be an amazing Catholic who wasn't. But it's hard. And it's hard to explain that in your own interpersonal relationships. It's hard to trust other people. It's hard to reach out to other people to bear that part of your soul. And even harder, I think, is to bear that, to bear that burden on other people. And to let them see that burden, or to ask them to help you carry that burden, or even if you don't ask them and they offer to help carry that burden, because at least for me, I know I'm like, this is not your problem, this is my problem. And so it's hard. It's hard, it's heartbreaking, it's frustrating. Some days I wonder if it's ever going to end. And I know that they will never forget. I hope that despite never forgetting, that they will, like me, take it as a life lesson, a soul lesson in how that's not how they want to be in the world, and to other people, especially as grown-ups, that they want to make sure that they're different, which I've seen from them already. You know, I've watched my kids be very protective of each other. They don't like people mistreating them, whether it's a child or, you know, some idiot cashier who makes some snide comment without really thinking about what they're doing. But I hope that they always have that strength and that camaraderie and that sense of family, and that never goes away, no matter what he does, what his family does, or what happens to him. And that they realize that despite that mom might struggle at times, mom is always here. I've always done my best to hide my struggles from them, which is not always successful, because my son is high functioning autism, so the slightest change in octave in your voice, he will notice, even if you think you're doing a really good job. So, you know, I've had therapists tell me it's okay, it's normal and it's healthy to let them see me upset and to cry, and that not everything's perfect all the time. But the natural instinct as their mother is to protect them from that. And to not show them that, and to not show them fear, because I don't want them to take my fear and turn it into their own fear and not be able to do what they have set out to do. So yeah, that is the mini update, I guess, as to where things are at, what's been going on. We've had some amazing supporters in our corner who check in with us, from friends to family to my boyfriend to therapists, to doctors. I would ask that you keep doing that, especially because I feel like our safety is going to be put in jeopardy a lot more within the next couple weeks. I will always try to say when I need time to not be bothered and to not respond. I did that the other day. I just said, hey, it's a crap day. Don't bother me. But other times, just that little check-in to make sure that we're okay is always appreciated, because he has nothing to lose at this point. He's lost custody fights. He has a 50-year order for protection against me and all 5 children. And now we're going down the last avenue for him to really lose everything. So there's no incentive for him to not retaliate. So while we stay vigilant, I ask for your support, and I ask for you to continue to pray for us and to continue to check in on us, and to understand that sometimes I can't reach out for the emotional help that I might want. But that doesn't mean that I don't need it. So with that, I will bid you a good evening. Again, this is Silent No More, so stay real. Keep telling your stories.